We are so excited to announce that we have created a brand new Sacred Shift Besties meditation and journaling starter kit, and we're giving it to you absolutely free.
It includes a guided meditation for inner peace created by yours truly,
as well as a beautiful printable journal loaded with prompts to spark self-reflection and gratitude. And you can download it right now by clicking the link in the show notes.
Enjoy!
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor.
And I'm Louisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
And we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
You see, we've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
I think another point that you brought up too, Steph, was feeling like you have the sense that there's some things guiding people and, kind of that actions happen for a reason and that there is sort of this higher level guidance happening and, we're meant to kind of experience certain things exactly when we do. So can you tell us a little bit more about your beliefs around that, kind of in a general sense too?
Yeah, thank you for asking me because I rarely get to talk about that. And I love it because I have been listening to your podcasts to get kind of like a vibe check, which is such a highly sensitive person. Like, let me observe and see like what they're up to, and then I'll know where I can slot in here. And you both talk about being divine beings having a human experience. And I believe that that's the case. I believe that we keep coming back to have as many human experiences as we need to until we've fulfilled whatever our soul's mission and purpose and desires are. And that's to feel the entire spectrum of the human experience, both positive and negative. And I definitely believe that we're all connected, that there's an energy. I come from a Catholic upbringing, which nothing against Catholicism, nothing against organized religion, but I found that it just didn't resonate for me. And the way that my brain negotiated what I was learning about the dogma and the ritual, and I like ritual and I like dogma and I like tradition, but the way that I was interpreting it was that there was something wrong with me, or that you can only interface with the divine in a way that is hierarchical, that you have to work through someone else who has more training, which you can hear it as I'm talking about other practitioners who are further along. There's still that ingrained feeling of like, there are people who know more than me, and so you should defer to them. And coming back around to the idea that we do have access and we are allowed to explore things in our own time, and we're allowed to be novices at things and have that beginner's mind, because I, as I sense both of you are too, am a lifelong learner, and growth is my number one value. So I love learning new things and I love showing up, and I'm learning to embrace the discomfort of being bad at things at times, or like just embracing my ignorance too, that there's so much I don't know and that that's okay, because it's going to be revealed when it needs to. I'm going to get what I need. I'm constantly in the pursuit of learning and gaining more wisdom and experience. So I'm doing exactly what I need to do and what my soul is calling me to do.
I love that.
Our language. You're speaking our language. That's so beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Completely agree. I was just going to say that was so beautifully stated. And I think something that will resonate with so many people, because so many of us were brought up with organized religion, and it does feel a little inaccessible to a certain degree. Like you said, it's this thing of like, well, sort of, I don't get to have this blessed life unless I follow these certain rules or go about it in this very specific way. And I think that that is the part that for most of us who have kind of gone away from organized religion have turned away from, is that aspect of it, of like, that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right that this God, this amazing, beautiful essence would want that. It would really dictate that, oh, well, you only get my goodness if you do things this certain way that these people are telling you. Like that to me, I'm like, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't sit well with me. That I only get to be blessed and go to heaven if I follow X, Y, and Z rules. And so I think that that is the experience that so many of us have had. And I think for me, I just kind of was like, no, I don't believe in God. I don't believe that that's real. I think that it's just some people trying to control some other people, and kind of turned away from it completely for a while. And it wasn't until I was introduced to more of the spirituality aspects. And honestly, I read a book called Mary Magdalene Revealed, which I highly recommend to everyone, because the way that she explains it and talks about the message that she feels Jesus was actually here to convey resonated so much for me. It was like I finally got the answers about God that I didn't even know I was really looking for, because I wasn't searching for it at the time. But it just explained it in such a way that it's like, oh my gosh, yes, he was here telling us that this is accessible for all of us, and that we do all have this divinity within us, and that we are these amazing spiritual beings, and that we all get to have access. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter the decisions that you make with your human brain. We're all here to feel this love and to love one another. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it.
Yeah, I was brought up Catholic as well, and then had kind of like Melissa just shared the same, where I was like, I don't believe in any of it, because for me, the first time that I started to question, well, not the first time, I always questioned it. I always knew I didn't align with it. And then when the Catholic scandal happened, I was like, I knew it. I knew that people just wanted power. And then after that, it was kind of like, I just knew, but went in and out of it. I was too young to make my own choice, still being around my family. But when I was getting married, was the first time that I felt like I want to get married in the church. And my dad was like, that's kind of a big commitment to make right now. I'm 23 years old. My dad's like, maybe you just wait like 10 years and then decide. And, so grateful, because what it made me realize from that moment forward, it made me start to really question, why was I going to do that? I did all the things like my confirmation, all those steps. I did all the things. And so the next step naturally was to get married by the church. But it was that feeling of wanting to be connected that I can now explain, is I wanted to be connected to my divinity, but that's the only way that I knew to do that. And so those years where I was like, I don't believe in a God and I don't believe in any of this, I think that it brought me to exactly that. And until my spiritual awakening, it was the first time that I was forced to kind of take all of the information that I had been running from, because I just decided that, organized religion was not my thing. After exploring, I went to every church and temple that I could, like any religion that I came across. There was Jehovah's Witnesses hanging out at my house. I was hanging out with them. All the religions, I really explored everything. And after deciding that I didn't align with any of them for that reason, because I was like, there is just no way that there's this man sitting up there who's interested in what I do in every single aspect of my life. And based on what I do, what I eat, how I chew, what pants I do or don't wear, he's deciding if I'm lovable enough. Like, there's just no way. It just did not sit well with me. And when my spiritual awakening happened and I started to have my clairvoyance and my visions and really understand what everything actually was, I was like, this makes a lot more sense. And then I came across a channeler online somewhere who was channeling Jesus. And that was a moment for me. I still remember that, because I was like, channeling Jesus? What does that mean? And then I came across a couple of other texts where it was like, yeah, he was here. He was a healer. He was really here trying to make us all, exactly what Melissa explained, trying to make us all understand that we are these divine beings, that we do have the ability to heal ourselves, that we are here to love and cherish one another, and all of those beautiful things. Except that, there was a group of people who understood it differently. And so we've created a whole realm and following from that. I'm glad that we're talking about this, because I think that's a lot of people. And even in my family, using the term spiritual versus being like, I'm religious or I'm Catholic or Christian. They would probably settle for Christian. If I could just be like, I'm Christian, they'd probably be okay with it. But when I say I'm spiritual, it's like, oh, you don't believe in God. And I'm like, no, the complete opposite. I totally believe that there's this divine force. There is this divine force. There's no question about that for me. But yeah, I love bringing that up because I think a lot of people shy away from a lot of the spirituality component because it's so closely related to religion and it's not clear yet. We haven't drawn that line where people are able to freely and like quickly see when they take a glance that there is a difference.
I totally agree. And I have had a similar experience kind of picking up because I'm a generator. So I just take in input and I pick up what I like and I leave what I don't like. And I heard someone on a podcast say that she was an omnist. And an omnist is someone who believes that every type of faith is all talking about the same thing. They're all just different perspectives of the same thing. And I like to think of that like a gemstone, that a gem has many facets to it, but you're looking at exactly the same thing. You're just seeing it from different angles. And so I had to do, and am still in the process of doing some healing around Christianity because my experience of it was so exclusive and it had a lot of gatekeeping. And there was a lot of agendas about who was supposed to have power and how it was supposed to be manifested and who got access to it and who didn't. And coming back around to being an omnist, I have to be able to see that there are good things that come out of those faiths, even if they do tend to be exclusionary in some instances. And I think they're opening up more and more. But I also had to do some healing around that and decide, like, if I'm going to be accepting to everyone, because that's my value, to be inclusive and to see the commonalities and the overlap between different spiritualities and different faiths, then I have to be willing to see it here too. And to see that these people are also filtering their divine through a human experience and through their lens, and that it has value. And it's something I have to catch myself at, because I'll go back into the judgments and I'm like, they're just not enlightened enough. Like, they just haven't discovered what I've discovered. And then I'm like, oh, thank you, human ego. Like, thank you for reminding me that that's like a thing. I can now empathize with those people who also feel this way. And now we can like come up with an understanding together.
I feel like I've always had that sense or idea that all religions are kind of centered around the same general concept, but sort of just these different interpretations of it, right? And sort of the different rules and expectations around it. And from this sort of wider lens perspective that I feel like we are now able to see, meaning us, because we've done this work and we've thought about these things and found some different perspectives. But coming at it from this wider lens view of it all, it then absolutely makes sense, because I do believe that there is this entity, something, the universe, God, whatever it is, that this thing does exist, and that as humans, well, as divine beings here having a human experience, everyone kind of feels that in some way. And so then over the years and years and years, different people have come up with sort of different ways to explain that feeling and explain that phenomenon that is happening just in their own way or their own language. And so it does make sense. I do truly believe that. And I believe that Jesus just was one of those people, right? He was one of those humans who was just explaining what was happening and this knowledge and this knowing that he felt. And then, he gathered a group of people all around him to do the same. And turns out he was just a person, and his group actually wrote things down, some records of all of it, of what was happening, right? Yeah. And then over the years, people found those different records, picked and choose which ones they wanted to keep and which ones they didn't really want to be part of their interpretation. And, now we have Christianity, right? Or Catholicism. It all does make sense that they're all the same sort of overarching concept, because I believe that that is true.
Yeah. And that was my takeaway. I went, like I said, all the temples, all the churches, and not all of them, but a lot of them. And that was always my takeaway. Was I loved the experiences that I had there. I loved and connected to the people from that perspective of like, we are all divine beings having this human experience. And that is what we shared, was we were all living our divinity, right? Or searching for our divinity. And I think that if we were to strip titles from everything, I actually think we are so much more alike than we're not. So much more alike. We just have all these titles and names and all the things that we put to it. But after my own experience in search of ultimately this, my truth, it was just so beautiful, just being able to interact with, 90-year-olds who were very much in their church and in their belief, and that's how they lived their life. And then with like 17-year-olds who would come over and, we talk about being a Jehovah's Witness, and we all had that in common. We were just all searching what we know, right? Like whatever we call it, whether it's God, whether it's the universe, whether it's divine force, whatever we call it, we all know that it exists. We all feel it. And I think that one of the things that I have learned, or more like the midst of realizing, I think, is the fact, like when we talk about energy work, it might be the easiest way to start explaining it to people is if we can focus on like the word energy, because then I think we can even bring in the people who are like the scientists. My daughter, who's like, well, mom, science says, and I'm like, wow. But I really think like if we were able to explain it from like an energy perspective, it would really, I think ultimately we come more together than we fall apart. I don't think we're that different in terms of what we're searching for and what we know exists.
I love that you just said that, because yes, we all know that this exists. We can all feel it. And so in some way, we're all searching. And as humans, we want to be able to categorize it. We want to be able to have some rules around it. And like, we want our brains to be able to make sense of it. And I do think that's where religion comes in, right? Is for most people, it is easiest to just say, yeah, that's why Christianity makes so much sense, because I know that this thing exists. I feel it. And then here are all the rules around it. And so this is what I believe. And I think that that's just us as humans. We wanted to find a way to categorize it and have it make sense in a logical way to us.
I was just thinking, because I love to play tabletop games, like gaming is one of my main forms of play. And I was thinking that for a lot of people, religions are almost like faith in a box. Like all you have to do is take it out of the box, and then it has this set of rules. And then you follow the rules and you try to go around the board. And like, if you get everything on the board, you play the game right. And then you get the prize at the end and you win. And I think for us, at least us here and your listeners, we are more of the exploratory type. Like what's in the box? Like some of those toys are fun. Like some of those components are fun, but I also kind of like this game. And I also kind of like that game. And like, I want to take a piece of this and I want to take a piece of that. And I think that's the very annoying and irritating part of being a human, is that other people feel differently than you and think differently than you. Like, can't they all just think the same? But it would be so boring if we all thought the same, right? And that's the beauty of it. Like my dad and I joke because we look at the same factual information about science and art and our experiences of the world, and he interprets that information and he's agnostic. And I interpret that information and I believe in the universe and energy and connectedness. And it's the exact same information. And we're both taking completely different interpretations of it. And that's like the beauty and the messiness of being human, and being able to acknowledge that in other people just makes it so much more delicious for us, even while it's uncomfortable and even while we might not like it.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Like gamification of spirituality. Like, that's perfect. That's such a perfect explanation for all of it. Like, I love that.
That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next time.